I never imagined my wedding day would turn into a nightmare. But when my brother showed up, everything I thought I knew about family was shattered forever. My name is Sarah. And this is the story of how my life fell apart because of the one person I thought I could always count on, my brother. I remember the excitement leading up to my wedding day as if it was yesterday. I had been planning this day for months. Every little detail had to be perfect. Our venue was stunning. The decorations were just right. And the guest list was full of the people who meant the most to me, including my older brother, Mike. He had always been my protector growing up, the one who made sure no one messed with me. But, like most families, we weren't immune to challenges, and over the years, things between Mike and me had grown distant. I didn't even remember when it started. It wasn't over anything huge, just small misunderstandings and disagreements. That slowly piled up. At first, it was when I went off to college. He was still living at home, working at a job he hated, and hanging out with people who didn't really care about him. He'd always been the quieter one, less driven than I was, or at least that's how I saw it. I had my life. I had Adam, my fiancé, and he had his own life that seemed to revolve around late-night drinking, sessions with friends who didn't even know his full story. I had tried to reach out to him, but Mike became more and more distant. Every time I tried to make plans, he'd either cancel or show up late, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His casual demeanor masked something dark or something I didn't understand. The final blow came when I was home from university for the holidays, and we had a huge argument. It was over something trivial. At first, he had borrowed my car without asking, and I was furious about it. But the argument escalated quickly. He said some things that cut deep, and in my anger, I threw them right back at him. Why don't you do something with your life, Mike? You're just wasting it. I could see the pain in his eyes after I said that. It wasn't just anger anymore, it was hurt. He looked at me like I had betrayed him, and in a way, I had. After that day, he stopped coming home for dinner, stopped showing up to family events. And me? I was too proud to apologize, too stubborn to admit I had pushed him away. The wedding planning process was no different. I sent out invitations, hoping he would come, but there was no response. I tried to reach out to him multiple times. Are you coming to my wedding? I texted him. It would mean a lot to me if you were there. But there was always an excuse: work, friends, or just plain silence. I had given up hope. I didn't think he would show up, and honestly, it broke my heart. But still, part of me hoped that when the big day finally came, things would go back to how they used to be. Family was supposed to be there for you, right? Especially on your wedding day, the most important day of your life. I figured that deep down. Mike still loved me and would put aside his pride for the sake of our bond. Maybe he just didn't know how to fix things, or maybe he was just too hurt to care. On the day of the wedding, I was a mess of excitement, nerves, and anticipation. My wedding dress, simple but elegant, was hanging by the door, waiting for me to slip into it. The makeup artist was working her magic on my face, making sure every detail was perfect. My mom was fussing around, making sure everything was in place. It was supposed to be a day of joy, but in the back of my mind, I couldn't stop thinking about Mike. Where was he? Why hadn't he shown up yet? I tried to shove those thoughts away. Don't think about him, Sarah. Focus on today. Focus on Adam. I whispered to myself. Adam was the love of my life. He had been my rock through all the hard times, my constant support when the world felt like it was falling apart. His smile made everything better. I looked at him and thought, this is the man I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. The wedding was set to begin in an hour, and the final touches were being put on the decorations. I could hear the sounds of guests arriving, the murmur of voices, laughter, the clink of glasses being set on tables. Everything was perfect. And then it happened. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mike. My heart skipped a beat as I quickly opened the message. It read, "I'll be there. I'm running a little late. Don't worry." I was filled with a mix of relief and frustration. I wanted to be angry with him for leaving everything to the last minute, but I couldn't help but be happy that he was actually coming. Maybe this wedding would be the turning point, the moment that would heal the rift between us. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. "Mom, Mike's coming," I told her with a smile. She nodded but didn't say anything. There was an unspoken tension between the two of us. She had always sided with Mike more than me, and I couldn't blame her for it. He was her son, but that didn't matter today. Today, I was the bride, and I wanted everything to be perfect. Time ticked away, and still, no sign of Mike. I looked at the clock. The ceremony was about to start, and there was no way he'd make it in time. I felt a pang of disappointment, but I knew I had to move forward. I walked to the front of the church with my father, the moment feeling surreal. The doors opened, and there was Adam, standing there waiting for me, his face filled with love. I smiled, feeling like everything was right in the world. But just as I was about to step into the aisle, the church doors burst open, and there he was, Mike. He walked in, disheveled, as if he had rushed here straight from the depths of nowhere. His hair was messy, his suit wrinkled, and his eyes, those familiar eyes I hadn't seen in years, looked tired, defeated. But as soon as he saw me, something flickered in his gaze. It was anger. Why is he here? I wondered. I froze. Was he really going to do this now? The most important day of my life. But there was no time to think. The ceremony was already beginning, and I had no choice but to push the worry aside, trying to pretend everything was fine. Mike took a seat in the back, but his eyes never left me. There was something strange in his look, something that made my heart beat faster. The air felt thick with tension, and I couldn't help but feel like this wedding was turning into something I hadn't planned for. Something darker. The moment Mike walked into the dressing room, my heart skipped a beat. I didn't know what to make of his sudden appearance. There was a tense silence between us as I stood frozen, trying to process the scene in front of me. My brother, the person who had been practically absent from my life for the past few years, was here. But there was no joy in his arrival. His face was cold, and his posture was stiff, like he was forcing himself to be there. "Mike," I said softly, not sure what to say. "I didn't think you'd come." His eyes softened for just a moment, a fleeting glimpse of the brother I used to know. But that warmth quickly disappeared as he shrugged. "Had to. It's your wedding, after all." There it was again, the disconnect. His words were casual, but the tension in the air was anything but. I felt a mixture of relief and confusion. Why had he come now, at the last possible moment? And why did it feel like he was here with an agenda? "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. I didn't know what was going on in his life, but I knew something was off. This wasn't the Mike I had grown up with. "Yeah," he replied, his voice flat. "Just tired." He didn't elaborate, and before I could ask any more questions, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there with a sense of unease. I tried to shake it off. It was my wedding day, for crying out loud. Nothing was going to ruin this day, not Mike, not anyone. So, I quickly pushed the conversation out of my mind and tried to focus on what was happening around me. The room was filled with the soft hum of excitement, the bustle of the bridal party getting ready, the scent of fresh flowers from the arrangements outside. But despite all of it, a nagging feeling lingered. Something was wrong. As I made my way to the ceremony, the church was filled with our closest family and friends. I took a deep breath as I stood at the door, ready to walk down the aisle. Adam stood at the altar, waiting for me, and I couldn't help but smile. He looked so handsome, his eyes filled with the kind of love that made my heart race. This was the moment I had dreamed about for so long. But as I glanced to the side, My eyes caught Mike's. He was sitting in the back, his gaze fixed on me. But it wasn't the loving gaze of a brother witnessing his sister's happiness. No, it was something cold or distant. His eyes seemed almost judgmental, like he was watching me from the shadows, waiting for something. I couldn't place it, but my stomach turned taut as I walked down the aisle. I tried to ignore him, focusing on Adam and the happiness I felt in that moment. But Mike's eyes never left me. It was as if he was following every step I took. I could feel the weight of his stare, a constant pressure on my chest. When I reached the altar, I forced a smile and took Adam's hand. The ceremony went smoothly, but the presence of Mike in the room was like an unspoken tension that hung in the air. Every vow we exchanged, every word spoken, felt slightly off. And then came the reception, the celebration where everything was supposed to come together. The music was lively, the food was delicious, and people were dancing and laughing, celebrating our love. But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Mike, though present, remained distant. He was hardly interacting with anyone, keeping to himself in a corner. He didn't seem to want to be here, yet he refused to leave. I tried to approach him several times, hoping to break the ice, but every time I did, he seemed to shut me out. His responses were short, almost cold, and his eyes never met mine for long. It was as if he was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't decipher the message. Around the time the dancing began, I found myself searching for him again. I couldn't help it. There was this undeniable pull in my chest, a constant worry gnawing at me. I didn't know if it was the years of unresolved issues or if it was something deeper. But every time I looked at Mike, my unease grew. That's when it happened, the moment that shattered the calm and turned the entire evening into something I never could have prepared for. We were just finishing our first dance when the music suddenly cut off. The sudden silence was jarring. People stopped dancing and turned towards the DJ booth, where Mike stood, his hand still hovering over the controls. I could feel my pulse quicken. Something was wrong. The whole room went quiet, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Then, Mike raised his voice, his tone sharp and commanding. "Everyone, I need your attention," he said, his voice carrying across the room. I froze. Every eye turned toward him. My heart skipped a beat. What was he doing? "I have something I need to say," he continued, his gaze scanning the crowd. "You all need to know the truth about Sarah and her fiancé." A gasp rippled through the room. The sudden shift in the atmosphere was palpable. The celebratory mood shifted in an instant. Everyone was now on edge, waiting to hear what Mike had to say. "Sarah and Adam aren't who they seem to be," Mike said, his voice steady but filled with an underlying anger. "She's been hiding things from all of you, and I think you all deserve to know the truth." My breath caught in my throat. What was he talking about? What truth? I felt the blood drain from my face as Mike continued. He started listing things, private moments, conversations that only Adam and I knew about. The things we'd gone through in our relationship, the struggles we had faced. The darkest parts of our life that we had kept from everyone were now being broadcasted in front of our entire family and friends. It felt like a slap in the face. The things he was saying weren't lies, but the way he twisted them made them sound so much worse. He spoke of moments where Adam and I almost broke up, but had worked through our issues. He painted it like a story of betrayal and deceit, leaving out the parts where we fought to stay together. And then he dropped a bombshell. "There's more," Mike said, his voice filled with satisfaction. "I know things you don't even realize. Sarah and Adam have been keeping secrets from everyone's secrets. That would make you question everything you think you know about them." The room was silent. People exchanged confused, shocked glances. My mother's face went pale, and my father's eyes darkened with disbelief. The weight of Mike's words hit me like a freight train. My chest tightened, my hands shaking. This wasn't just a public humiliation, it was an attack on everything I had worked so hard to build. I turned to look at Adam, but he was just as stunned as I was. His face had gone ashen, and I could see the confusion and hurt in his eyes. "Mike, why are you doing this?" I whispered, but my words were drowned out by the murmur of the crowd. But Mike didn't answer me. Instead, he stood there, as if watching everything unravel, his cold eyes never leaving me. The reception, once filled with laughter and joy, had transformed into an uncomfortable and chaotic mess. The music, which had been a symbol of celebration, now felt intrusive, like it was mocking the silence that had settled over the room. The guests were murmuring among themselves, some confused, some appalled, but all of them watching me, waiting for some kind of explanation. Mike, however, stood there with an air of triumph in his eyes, his gaze unwavering as it pinned me to the spot. The room felt suffocating, the walls closing in on me. "Mike, what the hell are you doing?" I whispered, my voice shaking. My heart pounded in my chest, and every fiber of my being screamed for him to stop. This wasn't just an awkward family moment, it was a full-blown public execution of my life. But Mike didn't flinch. His expression remained cold, detached, almost as if he were enjoying the discomfort swirling around us. The way he stood, there, hands in his pockets, casually watching my life unravel, it felt like betrayal in its purest form. He wasn't just calling out Adam and me for our struggles. He was exposing my vulnerabilities in front of everyone I cared about. The worst part was that it wasn't even about the truth anymore, it was about power. He wanted control, and he was getting it. "Why?" I asked, my voice trembling as I approached him, desperation creeping into my tone. "Why would you do this to me? To our family?" Mike didn't respond immediately. Instead, he glanced around the room, as if enjoying the spectacle of the uncomfortable silence he had created. His eyes finally met mine, but there was no warmth there, only coldness, bitterness, and a hint of something darker. For a brief moment, I saw the brother I used to know, but he was buried under layers of resentment and pain that I couldn't comprehend. "Why?" he repeated after a long pause, as if the question itself was absurd. "You really don't get it, do you? You've always been the perfect one, Sarah. Everyone always praised you, admired your perfect life, your perfect relationship. Meanwhile, I've been here, stuck in the shadows. You didn't even notice. You were too busy living in your little bubble." I recoiled as his words hit me like a slap to the face. The accusation stung deeply. "Mike, I never meant for you to feel left out. I never wanted you to feel like you didn't matter. You do matter to me." But he wasn't listening. His lips curled into a smirk, one that sent a chill down my spine. "You don't get it, Sarah. You never got it. All this time, I've been watching you live your perfect little life while I was stuck, invisible to everyone. No one saw me. No one ever cared enough to ask why I was struggling. But you got everything you wanted." His voice grew louder, more frantic, each word laced with venom. "So I thought, why not finally show everyone the truth about you? The truth about how fake you are, how much you've been hiding." I felt like the ground beneath me had just given way. His words crushed me. But not just because of what he was accusing me of, it was the fact that he was right. I had been so caught up in my own life, in my own pursuit of happiness, that I hadn't stopped to consider how Mike was feeling. I hadn't stopped to ask how he was struggling, what he was going through. It wasn't just that I had been blind to his pain, it was that I had been selfish. I had been so busy with my own world that I failed to see the cracks in his. But even as guilt flooded me, I couldn't reconcile with what Mike had just done. He had shattered everything: my trust, my happiness, and my relationship. He had used my vulnerabilities to rip my life apart, and that wasn't something I could forgive easily. "You don't have the right to do this," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and heartbreak. You don't get to destroy everything just because you feel left out. You don't get to play with people's lives like they're pawns in your game. Mike didn't flinch at my words. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low, almost taunting tone. And you don't get to hide behind your perfect life anymore. The truth is out, Sarah. Your happy little world isn't as perfect as you make it seem. No one is perfect, and no one is untouchable. I wanted to scream at him, to ask him how he could do this. But there was something in his eyes, a hardness, a resolve that stopped me. He wasn't trying to get back into my life. He wasn't trying to rebuild our bond. No, he was looking to tear it down. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. He didn't care if he lost me. He didn't care about the family anymore. The worst part, his plan had worked. I looked around the room at the sea of shocked faces, my parents, my friends, family members who had all come to celebrate our love. But now, they were all looking at me differently. They were judging me, questioning me. I could see it in their eyes, the disbelief, the doubt, and I couldn't blame them. Mike had exposed things that had been buried for years. Our struggles, our darkest moments, were now laid bare for everyone to see. I turned to Adam, hoping for some kind of reassurance, some kind of comfort, but he was just as stunned as I was. His face had gone pale, his lips pressed into a thin line of disbelief. I could see the hurt in his eyes, and it nearly shattered me. How could I explain this to him? How could I explain Mike's actions, his words, when I didn't even understand them myself? Mike, stop, I whispered, my voice breaking. Please, just stop. But Mike wasn't listening. He was on a roll now, his voice growing more frantic, more manic as he spoke. You think you have it all figured out, don't you? You think. You're better than me. But look at you now. Everyone's looking at you like you're the one with the dirty secret. And it's all because of me. It felt like the room was closing in on me. I felt suffocated, trapped, unable to breathe. The weight of Mike's words, the gravity of the situation, pressed down on me with unbearable force. My hands were trembling, my chest tightening. It was as if everything I had worked so hard for, everything I had built with Adam, was being ripped away in an instant dot, and in that moment, I realized something that cut deeper than anything Mike could say. I had spent so much of my life trying to make things right, trying to fix my relationship with Mike, but I never truly understood him. I never took the time to see his pain, to hear his frustrations. And now, it was too late. My brother, the person I had once turned to for comfort, for guidance, had become my biggest adversary. As Mike's tirade continued, I could feel the coldness spreading in my chest. The space between us grew wider with each passing second, and I realized that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't fix this. He had made his choice, and so had I. The truth had been exposed, but the damage was irreparable. Our family, once close-knit and full of love, had now been torn apart by a single, unforgivable betrayal. And in the midst of it all, I was left, standing there, unable to put the pieces back together. The truth had come out, but at what cost? The weeks that followed that fateful night felt like an eternity. The wedding, once meant to be the happiest day of my life, had become a painful turning point, a line drawn in the sand that I knew could never be erased. My phone buzzed constantly, with messages from friends and family, some offering their support, others questioning my decisions, and still others sending me judgmental glances, unable to fully grasp what had happened. But no matter how much I tried to put on a brave face, the truth remained. Everything had changed. Adam and I tried to salvage what we could from our shattered wedding day. In the quiet moments, when the house was still and we were alone together, we would try to talk about what happened, about Mike, about the things he had said, about the things I didn't even know were true. Adam was hurt, but he was also confused. It was as if the ground had been pulled out from beneath him, and the world he thought he knew no longer made sense. We both felt betrayed by Mike, yes, but also by the very nature of how family could turn against you when you least expected it. I don't understand, Sarah, Adam said one night, his voice raw with emotion. You said your brother was the one who always had your back. And then, whatever it was he did, it's like he just threw you under the bus. I don't know, I replied, my voice small and trembling. I don't understand it either. I tried to reach out to him. I thought that once he saw me getting married, he'd realize that he was still part of my life. But he didn't. And now it feels like he's made it his mission to ruin everything. There were so many emotions running through me at that moment: guilt, sorrow, anger, but above all, a profound sense of loss. I had lost Mike. I hadn't just lost my brother. I had lost the idea of family I had held onto for so long. Adam and I talked for hours, trying to figure out where we stood. The revelations from Mike had opened old wounds in our relationship, things we hadn't discussed or faced head-on. Our struggles, though nothing close to the magnitude of Mike's pain, had taken a toll. I was shocked by how easily Mike had exploited those vulnerabilities in me, twisting them to fit his narrative. But Adam had never pushed me away like Mike had. He had always stood by me, through thick and thin. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe Mike had been right. Maybe I had been too focused on my own life to truly see what he was going through. Days passed in a blur. My phone calls with my parents were short and strained. The usual warmth in their voices was absent, replaced with a discomfort that echoed the tension in the air. My mother had tried to reach out to Mike, but he wouldn't respond to any of her attempts. The door to communication between us all seemed permanently shut. One evening, after a particularly long and emotionally draining conversation with Adam, I decided to try and reach Mike one more time. I couldn't just give up, could I? He was my brother, my flesh and blood. Family was supposed to stick together, no matter what. But when I picked up my phone and sent that text, Mike, can we talk? I need to understand what happened. I knew deep down that things had changed forever. I wasn't sure if I was texting him because I needed closure or if I was hoping to find a way to fix something that couldn't be fixed. Days went by and I heard nothing, not even a reply. I had tried everything, and yet Mike's silence spoke volumes. It wasn't that he had been busy or distracted, it was that he had made a conscious decision to stay away, to cut me off, to cut us off. Adam noticed the change in me. I wasn't the same person I had been before the wedding. I wasn't as carefree, as confident. I spent hours lost in thought, replaying every conversation, every gesture, every look Mike had ever given me. Had it always been this way? Had I missed the signs all these years? Could things have been different if I had only paid more attention? One afternoon, after a particularly intense conversation with my parents, I called Adam into the living room. He had been pacing the house, trying to take his mind off the tension. I could see the worry etched on his face. Adam, I said softly, my voice thick with emotion, I need to talk to you. He sat down next to me on the couch, his eyes filled with concern. What's going on? You look like you've been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. I've been thinking a lot about Mike, about everything, I said, struggling to find the right words. I feel like I've failed him. All these years, I thought everything was fine, but now I realize I don't know him anymore. I don't know who he is, what he's been going through, and I feel like I never really saw him. I never heard him. Adam placed a gentle hand on mine, his touch a comforting reminder that he was still here, still fighting for us. You can't blame yourself for what Mike did. He's made his choices, Sarah. And as much as you want to fix things with him, sometimes you can't force someone to come around. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him that family mattered, that no matter what, I should be able to fix it. But deep down, I knew Adam was right. Mike had made his choices. He had chosen this path, and I couldn't change that. A week later, I received a message from Mike, not a call, but a message. It was short, cold, and distant. I don't want to talk anymore. Stop trying to fix things that can't be fixed. That was all. No explanation. No apology. Just a definitive end to our relationship. It felt like the final nail in the coffin. A part of me wanted to reach out and beg for more. But the other part of me knew that if I kept chasing him, I would only drive myself further into misery. The aftermath of that night didn't just tear apart my relationship with Mike. It strained my connection with everyone around me. The truth, in all its raw and ugly form, had come out, and the damage was irreversible. My relationship with Adam, though still intact, had been tested in ways I never imagined. The trust we had built over the years was now fragile, something that needed constant nurturing. But as time passed, Adam and I began to rebuild not just our relationship, but also ourselves. The scars from that night would always be there, but we learned how to live with them, how to move forward. We couldn't undo what had happened, but we could learn from it. Family, as we had known it, had been shattered, but love, real love, had endured. I spent months questioning what I had learned from this experience. I realized that love, whether it's between siblings, partners, or parents, is fragile. It requires constant effort, understanding, and, most importantly, listening. I had failed to listen to Mike when he needed me the most. And now, I had to live with the consequences of that failure. Moral of the story, sometimes the people we take for granted, the ones who have always been there, can slip through the cracks. If we aren't careful, listening and truly understanding those around us is the key to preserving our relationships. But sometimes, no matter how hard we try, not all wounds can be healed. If you've ever had a relationship tested by betrayal or miscommunication, share your story with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life tales of family, love, and the tough lessons we learn along the way.